have decks at the back of the house that leads to our parking. I've caught him hanging out on his back patio waiting for me to get home. He's even stalked me at my work. He's too old for me, and to think that I would even be interested in him is crazy. The worst thing is, he's a retired attorney. He should know better than to stalk a woman at their work. Thank goodness my work took it seriously, and campus police have him on alert. I work at a private college, and we were able to check he has no business being
My bad for that.
I now park my car at the front of my house, so I don't have to bump into him when I get home. My front door has a keyless entry, so I don't have to fiddle with keys to get inside. It sucks when your neighbor is a creeper. I finally get to tell my Matrix story. The first house I lived in by myself had 3 neighbors who did anything of significance while I lived there. The neighbor to the north was a sweet lady who sometimes asked if her kids could play in my backyard. The neighbor to the south was constantly doing renovations. The neighbor to the west, across the street from me, was the weird one. There was this loud family that lived there for the first year I was there. The kids were loud, and so were the adults. At the end of my first year in this house, they decided to move out for some reason or another. They were not particularly friendly, so I didn't find out why. After they left, I rarely saw the same car and the same people at that house. This made me think this house is either a crack house or an Airbnb, and I was hoping for the latter. One sweltering summer evening without AC, I was sitting in my living room playing video games when I heard the strangest noise coming from outside. I looked out and saw this Mini Cooper pulling up to this house at like 60 miles per hour and screeching to a stop in the driveway. If it was a big car, it might have been intimidating, but since it was a Mini Cooper, it sounded more pathetic. This dude it if you will, hops out and starts yelling and cursing and pounding on the door. Another guy, Jude B, opens the door and starts yelling at the dude who pulled up. They get into each other's faces shouting, "No, you're the mother F." A lady comes to the door and is shouting at Dude A. Dude pushes his way inside and closes the door behind him. A few minutes later, they all come out, still shouting at each other, with Dude B carrying a bunch of boxes and shoving them into the Mini Cooper. Dude A and the chick are still shouting at each other, and Dude B is shouting over his shoulder. Dude flips them both off and hops into his car and books it down the road. But again, a Mini Cooper, so it was more comedic than dramatic. An hour later, almost on the dot, I hear the high-pitched engine of the Mini Cooper barreling down the street. My first thought was, well, shit, this guy is so pissed at those two that he went and got a gun and is about to off them. He pulled up just as before and went into the same tirade. The scene played out exactly as before, everything. He walked up, pounded on the door, Duda and Dude B shouting at each other. "No, you're the mother F," Duda pushing his way inside. The whole thing was copied point for point, like someone just copied the scene the first time and pasted it back in an hour later. It was a strange glitch in the Matrix moment. I'm a 28-year-old female. Have you ever felt totally afraid, like your body tenses up and you feel your stress hormones preparing you to flee when in the company of a random stranger with no apparent threatening characteristics, including subtleties? I'll give you a couple examples. There is a family friend of my parents who has always been completely normal and kind and has never done anything that warranted a fear response in me. However, every time I've seen him maybe 5 times my whole life, I shiver, feel instantly nauseous, and then a little shameful for the stress it causes me. I always have to exit the room after a minute or so in his presence. He doesn't smell or anything, and I don't have any childhood trauma that could pinpoint this feeling I get. I honestly feel guilty about it. I can't explain it, and I know I must have looked crazy. Over the years, I've had these feelings about other people, both men and women, a handful of times. Just last year, I got the same icky feeling about a woman I was standing next to on the train. She was in her mid-30s, looked very normal average and plain in every way
Shit,
that I could
creepers
tell by
outside
glancing at
down.
her. The point is she didn't look threatening by any stretch of the imagination. My body reacted with that same nausea, and my immediate psychological reaction was fear, just like it had been several times before with random people. I got off the train and didn't think about it again before I saw her again on the same train months later. It was late like 1 a.m., and I could have sworn the ugly feeling came over me before I even saw her. I moved carriages away from her when I noticed her nearby me. She did not notice me or even look over. She got off and exited the train before turning around, and looking straight at me, she smiled. How sinister is that? This was not a typical friendly smile. There were only 3 other people on the train other than me, so I know she was looking right at me. She continued smiling and staring until she was no longer in sight as the train moved away. I panicked and had to steady myself by holding onto the bar while clutching my chest to try to re-regulate normal breathing. Today, it still makes me shiver. Has anyone had this happen to them before? I really don't ever want to meet anyone else that makes me feel that way again, even though I know it's inevitable. Thoughts, experiences related to this. Am I overreacting? I'm not normally an over-paranoid person, and 99% of the time I have perfectly normal and pleasant interactions with others.
Life's better when you're under our roof. Bundle your home and auto with American Family Insurance.
A bipolar FBI agent. He would be the friendliest person one day, then look at you like he wanted to kill you the next. We lived in a new development in the country. 6 houses on the street. He and his wife had invited me and mine over for dinner a month after they moved in. We were 28 and 27, ambitious and successful for our ages. He and his were probably mid-30s. We reluctantly did, then offered to return the favor. When they were over a month later, he asked for a tour and basically scoured all the rooms. Commented on my brand of shampoo for FSA. He would give you the darkest looks. He once stopped me as I was driving past his house to mine as I'm coming home from work. Stuck his head in and looked around inside my car before addressing me. He lived directly next door. I've never had anything to hide, and he'd randomly treat you like you were suspicious for no reason. Several times he'd knock, and when you answered the door, he'd just walk in like he owned the place, then ask for an egg, flour, or something because his wife was cooking. As he's looking